I have seen things. Things specifically to do with the Space Marine Codex and the changes that you may not have heard of, but need to be aware of for the upcoming release. Changes in the air, and I don't mean in a sort of Zinch way. I mean in a tactical doctrine to assault doctrine kind of change. Normally I talk about the Genestealer cult and the Adeptus Sororitas, but ever since my dad didn't understand the difference between Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines that I asked for, I have been a loyalist. You know, 2 out of 3 keywords is about right. Space Marines have been supported throughout the editions while Genestealer cult disappeared and the Battle Sisters only had occasional updates in White Dwarf instead of actual codex support, so I have always been drawn back to the Space Marines, as have most people who play Warhammer 40,000. It has been quite a bit of effort to go through all the Space Marine information and find the most important things to know before the Space Marine Codex even releases, but be warned, not all the changes are good. And if you love lightning claws, you will need to sit down. Begin! First, the Tactical Marines. Their special rule to fall back and charge and shoot is gone. Tyranid warriors with ranged weapons still have that rule, and they supposedly got their DNA from Space Marines, but Tactical Marines are no longer getting the same benefit as the Tactical Doctrine, though that did make sense. Now, after quite a lot of requesting, they have combat squads back. Only on this unit. Not Space Marines as a whole, but the rule lets you split this 10-man tactical squad into 2 squads of equal size before deployment. There are no weapon restrictions on this, so you could have a sergeant, plasma gun and missile launcher all in the same group of 5 and leave the other 5 marines with bolters on an objective. Now, the tactical squad may actually see more play than the intercessors whose sticky objective rule meant that they were a better choice for holding objectives, and they could always be taken in squads of 5. There are some weapon changes to the tactical marines. The Inferno pistol and the hand flamer that the sergeant could take are no longer available. They were usable on Blood Angels tactical squad sergeants, but now it looks like those weapons will be relegated to just Blood Angel specific units like the Death Company. I haven't seen anything to suggest that the tactical squad sergeant could still use them, as you don't have chapter keywords that would make it specific to Blood Angels. When Combi Flamers, Combi Melters and Combi Plasmas all have the same profile, I think if you did have a sergeant with an Inferno pistol or hand flamer, you could just call it a plasma pistol and actually just leave some of the weapons to be unique to the Battle Sisters. The Sternguard special rule is also changing. They lose the bolter drill to shoot a second time. I didn't think it was a particularly useful rule. It was very situational. How many times have you been able to use it? Some of you must have, given how popular the Leviathan box set was, and the Sternguard came in that box. I have talked more about this unit and the number of devastating wounds it can do in a separate video, which should have just pinged in the top right. But the Sternguard's new rule lets them reroll wound rolls of 1 against the Oath of Moment target. And if you thought that the Oath of Moment lets you reroll all wound rolls anyway, that is changing. Oath of Moment lets you reroll hit rolls only, not wound rolls anymore, so that weapons that reroll wounds, like units coming out of a Razorback or Lightning Claws, the Sternguard now also get access to the new equipment on the new models, like the Big Heavy Flamer, a Power Fist or Power Sword on the Sergeant, or a Chainsword if you want 1 extra attack. The Terminators are getting a new kit, and I believe the Sergeant can now swap out his Power Sword for a Chain Fist. They lose the first part of the Fury of the First rule, the part that everyone forgot, the bit about ignoring modifiers to hit rolls, but they keep the +1 to hit against the Oath of Moment target. The Hammerfall Bunker has had its fun. It is getting quite the nerf. In the index, its heavy bolters or heavy flamers could fire 4 times in the enemy turn, once per enemy unit. This was due to the defensive array on its weapons. Now it has a rule that it can use Overwatch once per turn for 0 CP, even if another unit has already used Overwatch that turn. The upside is that it can now use its missiles to fire as part of the Overwatch, but the heavy bolters will now only hit on a 6, making the heavy flamers a potentially better choice because they auto-hit. It also gained the vehicle keyword so you can shoot if the enemy is in combat with you through Big Guns Never Tire. The Vanguard Veterans with jump packs have been renamed to Vanguard Veterans. Now this is important because units like the Deathwatch Veterans can only be joined by a character that can join Vanguard Veterans. The keyword is needed now that Vanguard Veterans, the kind that was on foot and had scout, have gone to Legend. This way, the codex will keep working. The Vanguard Veterans have the same weapons and the same profile, so there's no Return to Thunderhammers and no Lightning Claws. Just their heirloom weapon, whose profile is a cross between a Power Sword and a Chainsword. That will hurt players who like those weapons, as that is what the weapons very clearly are. But if you like dual Lightning Claws, it is going to get worse. There is the new Jump Captain. He has no Lightning Claws. Those have gone the way of the Chaos Raptor Lord with Lightning Claws and the Raptor Champion with Lightning Claws. You could count it as being armed with a relic weapon and have a pistol of some sort in a holster, or use the Legends data card, the version that you've been using so far this edition. The model follows what the kit can actually be equipped with, but can also have a Thunderhammer and Storm Shield, a weapon option that does not appear in the kit. I'm assuming that this is for some monopose model coming out in a bigger box set, maybe for Warhammer Fest, Maybe later. The jump pack chaplain has recovered from his fear of heights and is matching his fellow chaplains at leadership 5+. It just took a couple of months of psycho-indoctrination therapy.
I'm not afraid anymore!
The Terminator captain is now only able to be equipped like the regular Terminators, not assault Terminators. This matches the new model kit. So no twin lightning claws, no Thunderhammer and Storm Shield. If you've made one of these models, then rather than demote him to be a rank and file, I would just keep using the index data card. All but one of the other factions are still using index card anyway, so this is hardly game breaking. The characters generally are changing. There is a merging of the Firstborn and the Primaris characters with the same job. I mean, it was odd when someone with the same skills as you comes along and HR has to find some way that no one gets fired, and so the Librarian and the Primaris Librarian were doing the exact same thing, but in different units. I'd expected them to be merged in the Index, since they were basically the same. Now in the lore, the Primaris were a secret project to change the original design of the Space Marines and make them better. They had been built up for a long time until they were needed. Like Attack of the Clones. They still used Horus Heresy era tactics like putting all the plasma gun carriers in one unit and all the bolt gun people in a different unit, but the reason they really exist is money. At the start of 8th edition, Games Workshop reinvented the wheel and got people to buy new Space Marines. They were essentially regular Marines, remade in a larger scale. It's just a Space Marine with a bolt gun and people bought it. By bought it, I mean they literally bought it. You see, it had separate rules, the same basic profile but with an extra wound, so it was better for battles and not just a newer sculpt for a Marine with a bolt gun. Over the last 2 editions of 40k there have been more and more Primaris versions with slight variations on a lot of Firstborn units. In the past, only Primaris units could use some stratagems, and I couldn't put Assault Intercessors in a Rhino or a Land Raider. Well, I still can't put them in a Rhino, but they can go in a Land Raider. Games Workshop haven't just made Firstborn invalid for fear of getting their HQ burnt down. So the Space Marines Index existed as a massively bloated creature with more than 100 units, many being very, very similar to another. Finally, with the Space Marine Codex coming out, it will no longer exist as 2 codexes in one, as several units just couldn't interact with one another. So a captain can now join all of the units that the Firstborn version can, and all of the units that the Primaris version can. They are the same. Note that the new captain of the company heroes has a regular looking bolt gun, not a bolt rifle. The weapon is named as a mastercrafted bolt gun, not a mastercrafted bolt rifle. So, if anything, the Primaris version got thrown out, and the Firstborn version will stand, though the weapon options otherwise match what the Primaris captain had, because that is the model that's still being sold. Named characters have also had a change to which unit they can join, so Pedro Cantor, a Firstborn hero of the Crimson Fists, can join units like the Blade Guard, giving you more options to consider. I'm expecting an errata to come out with the Codex, not only to confirm if we're using the points in the book, or the points in the September release. The Tyranids use a September release, but there are some new Space Marine units that just weren't listed there. I'm also expecting a clarification on some divergent chapter characters. Dante is listed as joining assault squads with jump packs, or Vanguard veterans with jump packs. Units with those names have basically been replaced. So unless there is an update to his rules, he could only join Legends units, and while Librarians can join Tactical Squads or Intercessors, Librarian Mephiston can only join Primaris units. And a lot of characters have been given the Tacticus keyword that did not previously have it. With these changes to keyword, like adding Tacticus to what was a Firstborn Librarian, have you considered how transports will be affected? Thankfully Games Workshop has. So Rhinos can't transport models in Tacticus armor, but they can carry characters with the Tacticus keyword if they are part of an attached unit that doesn't have the Tacticus keyword. That rule is on the Rhino data card. So a tactical squad with a Librarian can go in a Rhino because the tactical squad doesn't have the Tacticus keyword, even if the Librarian now does. The command squad for characters is now a Company Heroes unit. Brand new unit. The Apothecary from the command squad is now alone under the title of Apothecary, but using the weapons of the Apothecary formerly known as the Primaris Apothecary. The company heroes are very tough. They have 4 wounds each, so the squad went from 5 people with 3 wounds to 4 people with 4 wounds, 15 wounds to 16 wounds. They have a special rule that they need to be joined by a character before deployment, otherwise they'll be destroyed. They cannot be without a captain or a chapter master, and they are sold with a captain model. Though if you wanted extra power, you can also add a lieutenant on top of that, like a cherry that does lethal hits. I don't see the use of this unit. The characters will do better elsewhere supporting other units. The number of wounds that the unit has and the banner to increase objective control makes them great at holding objectives, But because they need to have a character, the champions are holding back the character from doing some actually useful fighting. I don't think it'll be worth it now that the tactical squads can be split. But if you wanted to order the new company heroes or any other Space Marine models, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, use the link in the description for Gap Games. That is gapgames.com.au/vampire for my affiliate link. Usually able to get about 20% off compared to Games Workshop prices. And if you're in the UK or Europe, use Firestorm Games. They are very quick at dispatching their kits. And you can get 12% off the new units and codex. Those affiliate links are in the description and really help to keep this channel running. Legendary units. Several units are going to Legends. A lot of them you expected and knew about, but others you may not have. Being in Legends isn't all bad. You can't use them in tournaments, but you should definitely talk to tournament organizers and see if they can let you use legendary models to make it more normalized that Legends are included. But for the rules as they are, you can't use them in tournaments, but they are usable in all other kinds of play. But legend points won't be updated, so they will remain suboptimal. And they don't appear on the Games Workshop app, though they do appear on apps like Battlescribe. The Relic Terminator squad is now in Legends, so all of those Terminators with the mix of Lightning Claws and Power Fists can't be used in tournaments. Not that they were commonly applied there. If you have enough with Lightning Claws, you could just use them as Assault Terminators instead, and anything else maybe proxy them over. The Stalker and the Hunter are now Legends. As kits, they just didn't sell very well. They were introduced in early editions as most factions, not Sisters or Genestealer Cult, got a flyer and anti-air platform. As flyers are less oppressive now and rarely taken, the counters for them aren't needed so much in the game. If you have one, it will have the same rules as right now, but in Legends. Or you could use it as a Razorback if you don't need to meet WYSIWYG. The Servitors have gone to Legends. The models can be used or sold to Imperial Guard players and AdMech players as they are still eligible for their factions, just not Space Marines. If you want a cheap unit to hold an objective, you need to look for Imperial Agents. Specifically, Inquisitorial Henchmen, and one of them is a Servitor. The Tech Marine with the Thunderfire cannon is gone, so now if you want indirect fire, you are expected to look to the Desolation Marines. The Ironclad Contemptor and Venerable Dreadnought are all Legends now to make way for the 3 Primaris-sized Dreadnoughts, the Redemptor, Brutalis, and Ballistus Dreadnoughts. The regular Boxy Dreadnought sticks around with the same special rules, the Power of Friendship. This lets infantry Space Marines in 6 inches reroll hit rolls of 1. It's also sometimes called Wisdom of the Ancients, it's up to you. But if you had a captain in 9th edition and you wanted to do the same rule, well, that captain may not be as healthy as he once was. And technically, it's the regular Dreadnought that's been sent to Legends, while the Venerable Dreadnought kit becomes the regular Dreadnought. Several characters are gone. Chaplain Cassius can now only be found with his more youthful and flesh-covered face in the Deathwatch unit Kill Team Cassius. The Tyrannic War veterans he could go with are Legends, the Tank Commander Kronos is Legends, and Scout Sergeant Tellian is not the only scout going to Legends. Scout Snipers are in Legends, but regular Scouts are not. The weapons for the regular Scouts remain much the same. You can't have a Thunderhammer on the Sergeant, just a Chainsword. They come in squads of 5 or 10, and for every 5 models in the unit, 1 Scout can have a Missile Launcher or Heavy Bolter, and in addition to that, for every 5 models in the squad, 1 Scout can have a Sniper Rifle. So if you have a regular squad and a Scout Sniper squad with a Missile Launcher, you could combine them and you'll only need to change 1 Scout Sniper and the Sniper Sergeant. Or I've also seen it where, looking at the models you get from the Scouts, only one of them can have a Sniper Rifle, in which case you could take the Missile Launcher / Heavy Bolter and 1 Sniper, put them in your other squad, and then you have 3 Snipers left over and they could become an Eliminator squad. It's basically the same models, it's a guy with a sniper rifle in a cloak. You've then just got to find like 3 more scouts. Alternatively, have a squad of 5 but able to switch out weapons and such. Or you could buy the new scout models if you want some more upscaled marines. But I don't know what use a silenced or flash suppressed sniper rifle would be in a unit that is also firing a heavy bolter or a missile launcher. If you've been using the Games Workshop 40k app, once the codex comes out proper, your army lists will disappear. That is what happened to any saved Tyranid lists when their codex came out. Hopefully, everything I've mentioned here remains true to the codex coming out next week and doesn't get FAQ'd or edited out last minute. But now, let's have a look at the models that are coming out for the Space Marines and why they are still valid as Firstborn. My darlings and viewers, have a great day fighting the Loyalist fight.